Hello everyone, this is Shannon for Waffle Flower Crafts. In today's video, we are going to do some Copic coloring and combine that with heat embossing. It's a pretty simple technique, but it really yields some beautiful results. Today we'll be using the new Poppy Hawthorn stamp set. I love this set. I think the flowers are so beautiful. I'm just going to pull off the main image from that set, put it in my MISTI here, and I'm going to stamp it on some white cardstock. First, I'm going to ink it up with a Waffle Flower ink. This is Coffee Loves Milk. It's a nice brown color. You, of course, could use black because essentially we'll be covering all this ink up later with heat embossing, but I do like to keep it kind of similar to the color of my heat embossing, which is gold. So after I've stamped it, I wanted to point out here that I am not removing that stamp. I'm leaving it in my MISTI. It's important to leave it in place there because we're going to use that stamp again and it needs to be in the exact same position. Now I'm going to move on to my Copic coloring. I'm actually going to do some really simple Copic coloring here. For these flowers, I have four kind of pink reds picked out. I'm starting with my lightest first and starting from the center and going out to the edge of the petal. And then I will move on to my next shade. This is just a little bit darker than that R00, which is what I used first. And again, I'm going to start from the center and work out. This time I'm not going to go quite as far as I did with that really light. Now I'm on my next shade, a little bit darker than that R20. I'm using R32 now, and again starting from the center, working out, and again a little bit less than the color before. Every time I'm going out a little bit less than the color before. And here's my fourth and final color, R22, and this is just going to go a very small amount at the very kind of center of the flower or any part that would be in shadow, because sometimes these petals are overlapping another, so I will usually kind of go right along the edge with my darkest color for those kind of shadows. Now I'm working my way back through my colors, so I'm going with R32, blending where R22 and R32 met. Then I'm moving to my next lighter shade, which is R20, and then I'll finish up with R00. Just kind of final blending out the transition of these four colors so I have a nice kind of pretty gradation on my flower. I did realize that I kind of missed R32 on this petal, so I'm going back over and fixing it real quick. And now I'm just darkening up some areas that would be in shadow, like this kind of part of the petal which is kind of cupped over. That part would be a little bit in shadow, and then quickly did the center with just one color. Now moving on to another flower. This one's just a little bit different angle, so I thought I'd show my coloring here. Again, pretty much the exact same process. Well, it is actually the exact same process as I did before. Working my way, putting down my four colors first, and once I get those four colors down, then I work back through and blend it out. And I'm just going to repeat this process for all the flowers. All the flowers are colored the same here in this beautiful kind of bouquet. I have to say that this is some of the easiest Copic coloring I have ever done. I was really relaxed because I knew a lot of my mistakes were going to be hidden by the gold embossing that I do later, especially like some of the really tiny details like the stamen. I just colored right over them with like my pink because those are going to essentially be gold when I move on to the gold embossing. So now I'm working on my leaves, just three colors picked out from my leaves. The same process, start with my lightest, then my medium. Now I'm on my darkest shade, then blend back through very quickly. These leaves go really fast. They're very, very easy to do. And I actually include the whole process here in my video because it just went so fast. Usually I cut a lot of my coloring out because it's very repetitive, but this went really fast, and it's always fun to see kind of the whole thing kind of come to a completion. But again, this coloring was really easy and I really relaxed, enjoyed it. So here I'm all done, and now I'm going to move on to the heat embossing. So I have my MISTI again, and it has the floral stamp from before positioned exactly where it was. I did not move it at all. I'm going to put down some anti-static powder onto my flowers, and then I'm going to ink up the stamp with Versamark ink, stamp it, and then I'll move on to my gold embossing powder here, pour on some gold powder, and then just tap off the excess, and then I will heat set with my heat gun. And the reason why we don't do our heat embossing before our Copic coloring, because you don't want to color over heat embossing. It will actually kind of stain your heat embossing, and it's not very good for your markers. So I went ahead and cut this out with my matching die, and now I'm going to move on to assembling kind of my card. Now I have a really pretty tan here, but it's only 65 weight, so I took my 110-pound white cardstock and just trimmed it down like 1/8 of an inch here. You can see how it's just a little bit smaller, and it fits inside perfectly by trimming it down. Now I'm going to put the two together, and I'm going to use a tape runner to do that. And again, that tan is only 65 weight, and I don't like that weight for card bases, so that's why I'm doing kind of this like kind of backing it up with a 10 pound base, because it just supports it better. But it also does like a really cool look, because you have like two tones or two colors now. You have kind of a white on the inside and the tan on the outside, so it's kind of a neat look. So I think this is a good trick if you have some lightweight cardstock that you really like the color of, but it's not very good for a card base. You can kind of back it up with a 110 pound card base. So now I'm moving on to stamping my sentiment. So I have my florals here, and I decided that this leaf was just sticking out a little too much. I don't like it when my foliage sticks really far out past my card base, because then you have problems getting your card into an envelope. So I just trimmed that leaf off, and I'm actually going to save it because I'll use it later. Now it fits a lot better, and I'm going to use those flowers to help me figure out where I want that sentiment to go. The sentiment says hello, and it's from the Poppy Hawthorn stamp set, so the same stamp set with the flowers, and I just inked it up in Versamark ink and poured on some gold embossing and just did some more gold embossing to kind of keep everything consistent. Now I'm going to add a little bit of splatter to the background of this card. I have some white from my Gonzai Tombi watercolor set, and I've just added some water, and I'm mixing that water with the paint. It's important to really mix these Gonzai Tombis with your water, the paint and the water, really mix them, because then you won't have quite a diluted, especially for the white. I don't want like I want a lot of white. I don't want it to be really diluted and be barely visible. And I did protect my sentiment a little bit there with a piece of white cardstock when I splattered. Now that the splatter is all dried, I went ahead and added some foam tape to the back side of my flowers and already removed the backing, and I'm just going to position them here on my card front, and then I added a little bit of foam tape to that leaf that I trimmed off, and I'll just tuck that leaf under there. It kind of balances that corner, and that completes my card. And I'll hold the card up to the camera so you can get a good look at this card. I love this Poppy Hawthorn set. I love all the details in the flower and the leaves, and I really think that gold heat embossing really makes those details stand out and really highlights them. And I love how easy it was to color. I think this is a really forgiving Copic coloring process by combining it with some heat embossing. I think it hides a lot of maybe the little errors that you don't like. I hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. If you want any more information on the products I used, please visit Waffle Flower, and you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for more creative ideas. Thanks for watching, and have a wonderful day.